Hi everybody, my name is Patrick, and this is the true story of the Stupid Computer BBS that ran in Atlanta, Georgia from about 1990 to 1998. It's area code 404. Basically, the story begins in the early 80s. I had come down to Atlanta, Georgia to attend Georgia Tech, and during my first or second year I met a classmate who had a TRS-80, and of course at that time if you had a friend that had the same computer as you, that was just great, and everybody else was just kind of evil, and you didn't talk to people with the Commodores or the Ataris because you were TRS-80 guys, So anyway, I asked to see his computer. He had a Model 4, I had a Model 1, and we walked into his room, and it was the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. The computer was sitting there, and it was doing things on its own, and I said, wow, this is really cool. What's it doing? And he says, oh, this is a BBS. And I said, what's a BBS? And he said, well, people call in, they leave me messages, they can chat with me, they can download files, upload files. And I said, wow. So we watched it for a while. You could see what all the people were doing, and I was really impressed. And at one point, though, it froze up, and I said to him, I said, what happened? And he says, oh, it's doing garbage collection. I was like, okay, what's garbage collection? And he says, well, I only have 48K, not meg, K of RAM, and it runs out of memory or resources, and it has to kind of get rid of the garbage things that are in the computer. And I said, oh, okay, great. Well, I didn't hear about BBSs for a while after that, but several years later I was working in retail, and one of my coworkers, his name was Paul, was on a phone call, and he said something about lock them out, log them off. And after the phone call, I said, Paul, what was that all about? And he said, well, Pat, I run a BBS. And I was talking to my wife, and I said, oh, great. Can I see your BBS? Because I've seen them before, but what are they doing now? So we went to his house, and in the middle of a dimly lit living room, there was this beautiful BBS sitting on a little table, and there were ANSI graphics scrolling down the screen. They were very bright and vivid, and oh, it's just beautiful. And you could see what the people were doing, and so he explained to me all about BBSs and how cool it was being a sysop. And he also showed me, the different graphics you could download, different programs. I remember a little program, C-Show, that could be used to look at GIF files. So it was very cool. And really at that time, I kind of made up my mind to start my own BBS. Well, probably within a year or so, a year or two, I had built my own BBS, and at the time it was a machine with a single hard drive, probably 1 or 2 gigs, because at that time they were very expensive. And I chose the Wildcat software because it was very popular and fairly easy to use. And I also used an operating system called DR-DOS. And DR-DOS was cool because at the time it was the only operating system pre-Windows that would allow you to, multitask. And so what to do? Well, I set it all up, and it was very great. I could do things on my computer with DR-DOS while people were on my computer. Started off with a 1200 baud modem. Later went to 2400. That was a big step. I remember what a big day that was. And then later in the years, we went up to 14.4, which was at the time just incredible. Later on, we went to add another hard drive, up to 4 more single-speed CD-ROMs. They were CDR 1000s. They had a 1,000 millisecond access time. Got them from Radio Shack. Very cool. Anyway, as the BBS grew and grew, we used up all the interrupts. We used up all the DMA channels. We had Y cables in the power supply. Nothing, not everything would fit in the cabinet. So we had the CD-ROMs kind of sitting on the desk, wrapped with duct tape. And to get more on the hard drives, we had to use a program called Superstore, which would compress the drives. And you may recall that in those days, hard drive space was very expensive. So what you would do is you would compress your drive, and you would end up with a small normal partition and then a compressed partition that had all the compressed stuff on it in kind of one big giant file. And during that time, there were probably 3 main types of BBSs. There were large subscription type BBSs. There were small BBSs like my own, and then there were the kind of the underground or elite BBSs. And later on, I made some friends with some folks that ran the elite boards and was able to get access to those. And I really liked those because you had access to computer viruses, which I had a keen interest in, not to spread or anything, but just to learn about them. And all the different text files that would teach you just all kinds of things, not only about viruses, but things like ANSI bombs and so forth. An ANSI bomb, I had read about at some point. They were codes that you could stick into a text file, and if somebody viewed that text file by doing type space fonting, it would redefine some keys on your keyboard. I never really came to think much about them until one day I was on a BBS and I had done something the sysop didn't like, and he logged me off, with a message that said, "Don't come back, we don't like you," or something like that. And I noticed that after I had disconnected, every key I pressed said that same thing: "Go away, don't come back." So I started reading more about ANSI bombs and got very excited about them. I said, "Wow, this is cool." And basically, in order for an ANSI bomb to work, you just had to have device equals ANSI.sys in your config sys file. Anyway, I got so fascinated by ANSI bombs, I ended up writing an article for 2600 magazine called ANSI Bomb, and that appeared in the summer 1993 issue of 2600. And then later, I decided to take my knowledge and do some good, and I think I wrote the world's first ANSI bomb detector program with Power Basic for DOS. And eventually there were 9 versions, I think, over the years. I still have some source code from the version number 6, I think. So my bulletin board was one of the few that actually scanned for not only viruses when people would upload things, but ANSI bombs. At one point, after the 2600 article, even the French government called me one day and asked for some information about ANSI bombs, so I thought that was really cool. Well, anyway, the BBS grew and grew, and in 1995, the BBS was attacked. And, first there were small attacks. People would upload viruses. They would bring me into chat mode and maybe curse at me or something. And they were kind of ruining the whole sysop experience that I had come to like. It got bad enough to where I decided to get a caller ID. And at the time, you could get a 40 memory caller ID. And I started locking those people out where they couldn't dial my phone number anymore. Well, early in 1995, I came home one night. DRDOS had an environment error message on the screen, and at the time, things weren't plug and play. They were, it was normal to have things freeze occasionally. So I rebooted and hoping that would fix things, and it didn't. So at that point, I thought, well, maybe I have a virus, and so I did a virus scan and found out that I did indeed have the Screaming Fist 2 virus. I was like, damn. So it was kind of a complicated thing because with the drive compression I was using, you can't access the compressed drive unless the normal partition with the normal files and the compression files are okay. And those were the very files that were infected with the virus. So what to do? Ended up trying to get rid of the viruses, and just when I thought I was finished around midnight that night, my computer kind of went brrrr, and there was like a bloop noise, and the CMOS erased itself, and I lost all my hard drive settings and so forth, and had to go back and fix all that and finish disinfecting things. Ended up being up until 4 o'clock in the morning, and later on I found out that yes, indeed, I had been attacked. A guy had uploaded pknzip.bat and also a DOS5, an infected DOS5 command com. And what he did basically is he had some knowledge of Wildcat BBSs. Basically, the Wildcat BBSs in the manual, it would say, run pknzip space star.zip when somebody uploaded a file, and then you could scan for viruses. Well, the guy probably knew that most people wouldn't, specify which pknzip to run since it was in the path of the computer, and he knew that if he uploaded a pknzip.bat and I ran pknzip, that batch file would then run it ran the command com, the infected command com that he had uploaded. What he didn't count on, though, was that the command com he had uploaded was a DOS5 command com. I was running DRDOS, and I think DRDOS was kind of like, what is this? And that's what gave me the environment error. So overall, I ended up getting about 35 files infected, and it didn't spread as much as it could have if I was actually running DOS5 at the time. But because of that, I ended up writing another article for 2600 called Day of the Hacker. and that was in the summer 1995 issue. Well, things went great, and I upgraded the BBS as best I could, you know, getting up to a 14.4 modem and the 4 CD-ROM drives, 2 hard drives. And suddenly, though, in 1998, Wildcat notified all of its users that it was discontinuing its software and selling it to another company. And that was a really sad day, because I think we all assumed that BBSs were going to become kind of the hubs for the internet. People would call their local BBS. The BBS would connect them to the internet, and you know, we thought things would continue, but they didn't. And it was a very sad day, basically, in 1998 when we pulled the plug after about 8 years. It was a very sad experience. But I can tell you that running BBS was one of the happiest days of my life. I still have my Wildcat 4 diskettes, and you know, I guess in the back part of my mind, I always wish that Wildcat BBSs would kind of come back somehow, some way. You know, and while I run some websites now, it's not the same as having a board, but hey, what can you do? Well, anyway, that is the true story of the Stupid Computer BBS. If you were curious how it got its name, when the computer was first being built, something didn't go right, and you know, I said, "Damn, stupid computer," and the name stuck, and that's how it got the name. So thanks for listening. That was the true story, and thanks for listening. Good night.